It's been a long-awaited response from Uber. Lyft is still, I don't know. Lyft is
What's happening?
crickets over
What's
there. What's
happening?
going on, Lyft? We're waiting. We're waiting because actually you had larger discrepancies when it came to the wage discrepancies that we came across on our More Perfect Union collaboration. And Uber finally responded to that a few months late,
Mhm.
but hey, better late than never, I guess.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, Lyft completely ignored the fact that there were discrepancies into dollars between the identical chips from our test with More Perfect Union. In case you were under a rock and you did not see that video, that you were not amongst the 5 million plus people who saw that video, okay, please go check it out. It's on More Perfect Union webpage, YouTube site. Number two, we tested Uber and Lyft. If you don't know what algorithmic wage discrimination is, let me refresh your memories. We started doing this about 2 years ago. This adventure started a while ago, and we tested and tested and tested. Algorithmic wage discrimination basically is two drivers sitting side by side getting the same offer under the same circumstances from the same passenger, from the same pickup point to the same drop-off point, but getting two different prices due to the fact that Uber algos may, I'm saying may, so I know you guys are watching, I'm going to be careful here, may discriminate due to drivers' past behavior of accepting and declining trips, which your CEO, on a moment of Freudian slip, 2 earnings quarters ago, said so. It's public record. I ain't saying anything that is not factual here. 2, we're going to try not to throw Lyft under the bus here, but I have an urge to inquire about Lyft's discrepancies in pricing trips. Again, same trips, same rider, same pickup, same drop-off, massive discrepancies. I have to give here, before I say anything else, Uber credit. Why? Because the first test we did, Chris remembers, we showed it to you all. There were 2 brothers sitting on a couch. There were massive discrepancies in pricing. Okay? Over the years, a couple of years now, after more tests we do, it seems like Uber is adjusting well enough that on this latest test with the viral video that we did with More Perfect Union, the discrepancies were down to maybe 20 to 30 cents a piece. During this video, there were 66 trips that came, identical trips, to the drivers who laid their phones on a table. Again, go watch the video if you didn't. Literally a quarter inch from each other in a building. And 44 had discrepancies. So my conclusion, and I'm going to let you have the floor, Chris. My conclusion on this is, 1, you must be afraid of something else, because you certainly cannot be doing this just for optics. 6 months later, many, many engineers hours later, you come up with this Medium article. This was put up on Medium, so please go check it out. It's on Medium. You can read the whole article. You have to be uber afraid of something else, because it can't be a YouTube jockey like me that you're afraid of. You just can't be. There's something else happening here. But we'll figure that out when the time comes. So Uber has done a good job in squeezing that difference down to pennies. And in this article, they have clearly tried to explain why there was that discrepancy. Lyft, on the other hand, is like the ostrich with the head in the sand. I'll just come up and figure out when it's time. Lyft, you need to come clean now, because Uber did a lot of work. 6 months and many, many engineers hours later, they certainly tried to come up with an explanation, which is completely unacceptable. The thing is, I think we made Uber cherry pickers, because out of those 66 trips, they just pick one single one. They love cherry picking when it fits their bill. And they certainly have a point here explaining why the differences may have been, Chris. And you and I agree on this. You and I agree on this. However, I'm going to end my rant. It's not a rant. I'm just talking to you, Uber. I'm going to end this saying, shots fired. Tests will continue under the guidance of this article. We will make sure we abide, because even in this, when we were doing the tests, and we have done these tests multiple times in multiple cities, you come up with this now telling us what your algo is doing. Okay? Well, now that we have this information, I'm thinking next time we do the test, we're going to draw blanks. Everybody is going to get the same price. According to this, now that we know what to do, how to test correctly. So, to be continued. There we go.
Well, yes, this article came out. You sent it to me like literally probably right as it came out, and then I was reading through it, and then you sent me another one. I'm like, dude, way too long. Shorten that up. But either way, yes, this kind of went through some of the things that was going on with the test. And I will give them credit too, where credit's due, because the first time with the two brothers, there was wild inaccuracies. Then the next time we did it, where I was in Chicago with drivers last year, same thing happened, and that's where we found out the EV shaving and what was going on when EV were not getting the full dollar; they were getting like 80 cents on average. So we actually were able to get a lot of drivers their actual EV amount credited back to them. So that was good. And then that had gotten tightened up. And of course, that program has changed since then. But either way, when it was that program for the $1 per ride, at least those drivers were able to get their money that was due to them because of an algorithmic issue, glitch, problem, whatever you want to call it. Maybe it was built in and we're like, oh, we're not going to do anything unless somebody sees it. But that's very hypothetical there. And then the following time we did it, a couple of months after, or 2 months after or something, at Curbivore last year, where you were with a couple of drivers doing that, still found some discrepancies, but they were much smaller. And then when you did the more perfect union, it was, yes, most of them were very small compared to Lyft. Lyft, different story there, but Uber did a very good job at least tightening that up. Coming out with this, once I read through it, I said, you know what, I will give them this the benefit of the doubt on a couple of things, because there were certain things that when we were doing the testing, we may not have known. Now that we know them, guess what? I told this to you over at Uber. We will be testing more. Don't worry. And so that will be happening. But some of the reasons why they said GPS discrepancies, or some of the reasons why they were saying there were discrepancies was because of GPS discrepancies. So they were saying fares are calculated using estimated times of arrival based on GPS locations, which doesn't always perfectly match a driver's physical location. Okay. And that's what they chalked it up to in this. But they also said there's surge pricing. So if a driver has recently traveled through an area with higher surge, their fares wouldn't reflect the higher rate, not the surge amount of trips starting point. That's null and void because no drivers were getting surge at that point. Dynamic updates, surge heat maps refresh continuously at regular intervals, so drivers may see different adjustments even seconds apart. We did see some surge manipulation changes on the apps, which we talked about on that. So if you want to go see that, you can. But again, not part of this issue. And then feature testing. We regularly test new features and models to improve the app, which can result in temporary fare variations across groups. These tests are never based on protected characteristics. Interesting. Interesting. So what is this
That's
feature
admitting
testing?
right
We need
there.
to know more
They're
about.
admitting it right there. Look, they're admitting it right there. They do it, and we don't know when it starts, when it ends. So right there is your smoking gun right there, Uber. Thanks for putting that in there. You're admitting it, that you do it. And how do I know if you're stopping it if I don't test it? How do I know you're not continuously doing this? Right? So you are doing it. Thanks for the admittance here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and then promotions. So anything like Boost Plus incentives vary by city, time, week. And the thing is, when it came to Boost Plus, If there was anything where it says included in, that type of thing. This is where Lyft had the massive problems because they were saying, hey, Surge is involved in this, or you had the uh, bonus, the per ride bonus. So maybe it was 250, but there was no 250 that was actually shown in the ride requests that were coming in to all of the drivers. They were actually relatively the same. So that showed a lot of discrepancy when it came to it, because there was never a time where the surge that was attached to it, or the prime time pricing was attached to it, was there. So that's a problem on Lyft, and we're waiting Lyft because your discrepancies do not seem to have tightened up in the least at all. So honestly, Uber's did. And the GPS thing that they talked about is kind of the one that they honed in on these particular ones. So this is where they were talking fares varied slightly because of these different starting points. For example, on one trip, the rider was south of the building. The drivers who assigned were starting on Street B had a slightly shorter route, one less traffic lights to navigate to get to the rider than drivers who were assumed to be on Street A. Estimated time from riders pickup and destinations all the same, for their illustrating the driver's starting points were only a factor contributing to the variations, and then they got a representative of that. So they were showing one of the trips where was the fare offered to the driver is going 928 to 952 is the low to high, and then they were talking about the estimated time to pick up and estimated time to rider destination, those types of things. So it did have some variations in that. And I did notice that when I was doing the test, that there was sometimes some things where it would actually be a little bit difference in variation when it came to the pickup. So, with that explanation of the GPS, I actually can understand that. And especially if you're inside, there's less GPS, there's less accuracy, so you can have that bouncing around. So I will accept that as a plausible answer to the reason why you're getting 20-30 cent differences.
Yep.
Whether you agree with that or not, when it comes, and I can prove that too. Like, I've proved that myself, not even anything to do with Uber or Lyft or anything, but I have a drone. I'm sure you probably heard me talk about that. So when you turn your drone on, if you turn it on inside, it will show you how many satellites you're connected to, which is always much lower than what it is outside. You might hit 14 satellites that you're connected to inside, and it usually shows up red because you're usually not at that threshold to get a really good, accurate pinpoint. But when you're outside, I'm always around 28 to 34 satellites that I'm connected to, and that's for the drone GPS. So that is something that I will completely concur with when it comes to GPS variations, even on your phone or anywhere else. So those types of things I will give them credit for, and the fact that they tightened it up a little bit more. But with that being said, the problem is the issue that arises now is, are you going to continue with that or not?
Okay,
and so we will still be testing.
Okay, let me explain this real quick to you guys. Please pay attention to this, but please go to the article, and it's on Medium. It's under Uber drivers something. But if you go to Medium and click do a search under Uber, you'll get all their articles. So this is how much work Uber put into this. Okay, so we were in a building on a second floor of a building in Santa Monica when we did this test. Okay, so I'm told that, do you guys see that cluster of tiny dots? That's us. That's the 7 drivers with their phones on the table. This is how much work went into this. They researched every single ping that we got. So they did watch. Obviously, they watched, right?
Well, I mean, how many millions views did that video get?
Yeah, when you get 5 million views, I guess, damage is done. Unbeknownst to me, they figured out where we were from our GPS location as drivers, okay? Again, unbeknownst to me, this was not known to me, but now it's known. Now we conduct our tests according to this parameter. So all those little dots you guys see are the pings. And we were actually, Street A was Santa Monica Boulevard, facing there. And there was 2 side streets. So Uber's contention is that not only the GPS signal could have made this difference of 20-30 cents, but it says that their systems does not recognize a driver. This is how close they watch, how closely they can monitor things. Does not recognize that a ride can be accepted in a building, because we were in a building. I'm not going to deny it. Everybody knows. And The GPS problem being on the second floor, I get it. We're not at street level. Okay, cool. But Uber says in this article that each time a request came in, Uber systems put the driver, which was in a building on a tabletop, with 7 phones side by side. Uber either put the driver on street A, street B, or street C. And Uber contends that since there is pay during P2, meaning Uber supposedly pays you guys to go pick people up, and if a ride is accepted on street B versus street C versus street A is going to be resulting in different fares because that driver may have to go around the block on his way or her way to the rider. Clear enough explanation. Maybe you guys should have told us this, because the next test will be conducted properly. So we're all on street C. Literally, we will be in the middle of the street doing this test. Okay? And that way, we have no problems. We don't have this issue. But I'm betting, I hope to God, Uber, that there is no discrepancy when we do the next test, because we're going to do it according to these rules and laws. Okay? So much respect to Uber doing this. They spent shit ton of hours, 6 months of work. I'm not going to say rebutted, because I don't think they did. They cherry picked. And one last thing I'm going to mention here. One last thing, Chris. Maybe you'll agree, maybe you disagree. If Uber systems are so good that they can figure out that there's that 35-foot difference in GPS problems, and it has to put you on a street to accept a trip and all that good stuff, right? Okay. Do you know how many emails I get from drivers saying that, oh, my trip went 5 minutes and, half a mile longer or a mile longer, and Uber did not adjust my trip? What about that, Uber? If your systems are so good to figure all this stuff out, why aren't you adjusting the fares up when a driver drives for free for a mile and maybe 5 extra minutes, 6 extra minutes? How about that? If your systems are this good, you should be able to adjust upfront fares on every single trip that goes longer. Because when you brought up front fares, you put something saying a lot longer. What the fuck does that mean, Uber? What does that mean? Okay.
Yep.
So now that I know your systems are so good that instead of me sitting on the toilet looking at my app, you're going to put me on the next closest street as an accepting point, and the fare is going to differ. What about the fare when I drop off at the airport or when I drop off somewhere and I have to drive an extra half a mile, but then your system somehow ignored that, never picked it up? That's where the big money is at, Chris. Multiply that times 1.2 million trips per hour. I'll bet you 10% of them go a lot longer. Longer, not a lot, but longer.
Or traffic jams, accidents, unforeseen circumstances, a lot of those things. So yeah, that definitely needs to be looked at a little bit more now too. Going to this thing where it says the article said it was a 32-foot difference. Yes, you're right. It's a plus or minus 16 foot. So you could have 32 feet between phones. The difference though is when you're indoors, your GPS is not as accurate. So you could potentially be reflecting off certain things. It's just like Wi-Fi. It's a signal. So it's a wave signal that's coming. So it can always be, kind of maneuvering. So that's why if you ever look at your GPS, like your map on the phone or something, it can actually move a little bit. And that's because it's always re-pinpointing you, especially if you're in the house. So you can actually do that on your phone, open up Google Maps or Waze or something like that. And it will actually, even though you're sitting there, it could potentially move a little bit, because every time that it's reconnecting or connecting to a different satellite, because you're inside, or, because it's bouncing off a wall, or, something happened. So it can actually lead to a greater variation. Even though they say 32 feet, I'm going to give them more. I'll give them something like 60, which can actually show you, could put it on different streets. So I will give that as an acceptable answer to the reason why there were certain discrepancies. But with that being said, do not fret, because we will continue testing this. And with that said, if you would like to take part in our tests, if you're in Buffalo, if you're in the Western New York area, if you're in the area of Western New York or want to travel towards Buffalo, hit me up and let me know, Chris at therideshareguy.com. We can do a test at a certain time. I'm not going to say when, because I don't know yet. Same thing with Sergio. If you are in the LA area or want to travel to the LA area and meet up with Sergio to do these tests, then email Sergio at the rideshareguy.com. Or if you would like to do these tests with a couple of drivers that you know in a particular area, now that you know that, just email us and let us know. We'll give you the details on what you should and should not be doing when it comes to these tests, so we can have a much more accurate picture, taking this GPS discrepancy out of the equation completely. And then that way we can enjoy seeing if they are keeping true to their word and tightening up these algorithms or not.
Hey everyone, Sergio here with the Rideshare Guy. What do we say on Show Me the Money Club? Work smarter, not harder. If you aren't using the Solo app, which I have been for the past year and a half, you may be working a lot harder than you need to. Let's change that. Download the app, link your account where you can manage your income, track your expenses, as well as your taxes. Not only that, but you can plan by optimizing your time, make more money, and even guarantee your daily pay with guaranteed earnings. Download the Solo app today. Begin to work smarter, not harder. Link is in the description. Let's get back to it.
I respect the effort, right? I respect actually Uber for doing this, because 6 months is a long time, right? But the damage is done. And out of 5 million views, I'm sure 500,000 were drivers and 4.5 million were riders. So, there's a little bit of damage there. However,
hold on. Yeah, let's do the closing thoughts. So the closing thoughts on there is saying, we understand why drivers might compare fares and question variations. Well, yeah, of course. GPS inaccuracies, which like I said, I will give them this one.
Eradicate those inaccuracies.
Situations like this often explain the small differences, which we will account for. And going forward in our tests, we will make sure that we know. Platforms like Uber have a responsibility to provide our users, drivers, couriers, restaurants, and their customers with transparency around how the platform works. So you gave us some more transparency in this article. Thank you. Including how fares are formulated. As we continue to innovate, we're working toward the same North Star, expanding access to good work and reliable transportation hand in hand. So with that being said, why did they even do this in the first place? You kind of brought that up earlier, and I'm going to share my thoughts. There's two things that I think that this article kind of hinted at, and we've talked about when it comes to this. Is there some sort of discrimination based on characteristics? Because they put characteristic discrimination in here, which means skin color, religion, background, those types of things. Things that you cannot discriminate based upon because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So you can't discriminate against anybody for anything. And so did they put it in there because, that's some of the leaning towards, I really don't believe that they are pinpointing certain characteristics of people to say, hey, we're going to get paid more or less. I really don't. I don't think the algorithm is even there, because they could do something so much more, and it's just based on a driver seed. So you take it for what it's worth. I don't think they've ever been doing that. But the other side of the coin, there was a 3-letter agency that came out, just 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, that we highlighted, saying, hey, if you've ever experienced differences in pay based on surveillance pricing, is what they call it, then they want to hear from you. So I think this is to get ahead of anything that a 3-letter agency might be coming at them, or that they are, trying to get ahead of anything that could be construed as discrimination against the Civil Rights of 1964 Act, saying that they're pricing discrimination based on certain characteristics of people. I completely disagree with that. I don't think, like I said, I don't think that's part of it. But I think that's kind of part of the reason why they actually came out with this article or rebuttal in the first place. Now, Lyft, you had a lot worse. You had a lot worse when it came to the pricing discrepancies.
Yeah.
You have a lot more splaining to do. And I'm going to go get Lucy. And I'm going to go get Ricky. And Ricky's going to say, Lucy Lyft, you have some splaining to do.
No, so, I agree with everything you said. I know throttling does happen, Chris. I know that for a fact. I have proof of that. And one day we'll come out with that when we're ready with that. But I cannot take Uber's word anymore when they say, just trust us. Uber, the trust bridge has been burned so long ago. I'm not even sure you can build that bridge between the riders, drivers, and yourselves. There is no trust bridge. You guys burned that a while ago.
Oh God, yeah.
So now when you cherry pick these kind of things, every time there's a blog, it's just always cherry picked. It's always this,
Well,
always
hold
that.
on.
Oh
How many
my
trips did you say that were discrepancy out of
66,
66?
44.
44. Dude, they can't go through 44 different trips.
Yeah, they do.
The thing is though,
They went through all the pings and put those dots in there, Chris.
Yeah, but what they're showing, again, it's an example. So they're just taking the example of one. They're saying this one had a 30 whatever cent difference. So they don't need to highlight every single trip and say, hey, this is the reason for that.
Okay.
I don't think they have to. I think that is a sufficient enough answer for me to say thank you for that information.
Yep.
I'm going to take that information. I'm going to build on my tests to make it more accurate and perfect my my knowledge base on that. So then that way, next time I do this test and I see a 20 or 30 cent discrepancy, I'm going to say, what's going on here, Uber? We were all in the middle of the street.
The other thing, Chris, the other thing
around us.
Because their shit is so opaque, right? It's so opaque. This algos and things like that. I did not know that the dot was put on the closest street, and then if the driver had to go around the block to start the trip on his or her way to the rider, that could have been that 20 cent difference as well. I did not know that. That's why we did it in a building. If I had known that, I would have done it on the street.
Yeah.
So I alleviate that problem. Because Uber goes, well, you could be on this street, you could be on this street, you could be on this street, and that's why the difference is 25 cents. I'm like, that's because we pay on P2. They go, oh, okay, cool. The next one is not going to be like
telling us that information. Now we will use that information.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Conduct our tests better and more effective. If there's anything else that you would like to share with us, so we can make sure
before we do it, before we go through the length of exactly
share that information with us because we would like to know, and then that way we can actually absolve you from having any issues. Saying, hey, we did the tests, not one problem on this entire time, not one problem. We'd love to say that, but the reality is we're probably not going to say that. But yeah, give us all the information we can. We'll continue doing the tests just to make sure.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome, Uber. Just give us all the stuff we need so that next time we do the test, we have it. So you don't have to put engineers to work for months or whatever. I don't know how much time went into this, but I'm sure it did a lot for this 6 months later to come out. We'll just, nip it in the bud. That's it.
All right. Thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself, Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you get notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.